Welcome to the Waterloo Institute for Health Informatics Research Seminar. Delighted to have you all here today. I'm very delighted to have our guest speaker, Robert Istepanian, and he'll be more formally introduced in just a minute. But just to give you an inkling of some of the innovation that Dr. Istepanian has done, he's the person that has coined the term M-Health. So that's just to give you a little bit of a taste of what he's going to be talking about. I have a number of announcements. I almost feel like I'm going to be a billboard here in talking about some of the things that are coming up this term. And I would invite all the students to participate or come to these events. These are really for the students. So if you want to know more about health informatics and what's going on campus, we are having information sessions this Thursday, September 18th, in the room, lecture hall next door, room 1302. They are going to be held at 12:30, 2:30, and 4:30. So we'll talk about health informatics and some of the things that we'll be doing in terms of health informatics on campus this term. Another event that I highly recommend to students, because this is exclusively for UW students, it's free, that's even better, and it's our Applied Health Informatics Mini Boot Camp. So on Saturday, September the 20th, we'll start bright and early at 8:30, and we're just going to go like bats out of whatever, and to the end of the day, learning about health informatics and career opportunities in health informatics. We need you to register for that, and that is available on our website, hi.uwaterloo.ca, to register for the mini boot camp. Everybody is welcome to come to the mini boot camp. And then the beginning of October, we have Careers in Health Informatics, where we invite companies and health organizations to talk about what they do in terms of health and health industry, innovations in the healthcare environment. So that is October the 2nd, and again, you need to register for that. And last but not least, I want to say that we have an upcoming seminar next Wednesday by Dr. Mark Hakey, if I got that right. And Mark is coming from Wayne State University. He is a pioneer in the use of MR imaging, and he'll be talking about standardized MR imaging of the brain, a global approach to study disease. So that is next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, again in room 1302. So I hope all of you can join us for that. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Maher to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Robert Istepanian is a professor of data communication at Kingston University, London, and a visiting professor in the Division of Cellular and Molecular Medicine, St. George's University of London. He is founder and director of the Mobile Information Network Technologies Research Center at Kingston University. He is also an investigator on several engineering and physical sciences research grants on wireless telemedicine and other research grants. Since 1994, Professor Istepanian has held academic posts in UK and Canada. He is currently the 2008 Liverholm Distinguished Visiting Fellow at the Center for Global E-Health Innovation in Toronto. He has published more than 170 refereed papers and edited 3 books, including chapters on mobile communications for healthcare technologies and biomedical signal processing. Today, Professor Istepanian will talk about the role of emerging communications and computing technologies for personalized healthcare systems. Welcome, Robert.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank Shirley and Dominique for the invitation and to give this opportunity to talk to you about some of the work we are doing in Kingston and St. George's. Also, I will take this opportunity to coin a new phrase, a new concept called Wikinomic Health, which Dominique liked a lot. And I liked it, actually. So, to give you a background, I was talking to Dominic, and I'm also, by the way, a Hitchcock fan, so I like Hitchcock. And the other day I gave a lecture in one of the London universities. So I call it Dial H for Health. So, so because I'm a fan of the less obscure film, I mean, I invite everyone to see it. It's a fantastic film called Dial Line for Murder. But I didn't talk about murder, of course. I talked a lot of healthcare. So I'm going to talk about a sort of Hitchcockian vision of health. Hitchcock was a genius ahead of his time. I mean, he invented a genre of a complete genre of movies, horror movies, by one stroke of his film. So, so before some of you will ask about what is economic health. So before I start about talking what is economic health, we would like to talk about the early definition of the current definitions, e-health, and there is about 20 definitions of e-health if you look at this website, and of course telemedicine and telehealth. And e-health emerged early 21st century. It was there, of course. I mean, the whole telemedicine thing was started by the space age in the 60s. But really things kicked off late 80s, early 90s, when more of the computing technologies and wireless started really to mature. So these are the definitions that I liked about telemedicine and e-health. So for example, telemedicine is the use of medical information exchange from one site to another via electronic communications to improve patients' healthcare status. Closely associated with telemedicine is term telehealth, which is often used to encompass a broader definition of remote healthcare that does not always involve clinical services. So these were the differences distinguished between telemedicine and telehealth. Of course, what is economic healthcare? So I'm not going to go details. I'm not going to discuss this, but we are nearly there, actually. I'm going to show you something, but we are close to this thing. So before that, I coined the phrase mHealth in 2004, and before that, actually, I didn't call mHealth. I called Unwired Healthcare in 2000, another editorial of the IEEE transaction. So I started with a simple definition: emerging mobile communication network technologies for healthcare system and applications. And now it's widely recognized as one of the key elements and evolution of e-health and mHealth, with thousands and thousands of research around the globe. So to give you an example, this is where I did some Google statistics, very simple. I mean, if anyone do this, it's interesting. Type wireless telemedicine, there's about nearly 500,000 hits. And mobile healthcare, 2 million hits. And now if you type in Google 3G wireless healthcare, it will give you around 300,000 hits. So, so the area is massive. I mean, there's a big interest in it around the globe. And now the industry, in the last 3, 4 years, the industry is really taking a big interest in this, because they feel it's an increasing revenue generation angle. Now, the interesting thing, and this is where I was thinking about the economic angle, the age of Wikipedia and MySpace, and by the way, Beepo, which my daughter, teenage daughter, told me, and because she spent a lot of time communicating with her friends on the Beepo. So Beepo is the teenage version of MySpace, and it was bought by AOL in March this year for $850 million. So that's tell you how the social networking is now becoming really massive. So I thought, hang on, what about if we mix the two things? And I said we come with this phrase called economic healthcare. So this is my early definition. It's use of emerging Web 2 and 4G wireless and mobile network and sensor technologies for future mass accessibility and interactive sharing of health information, personalized disease and well-being management. So this is my initial definition. I will try to put it on the Wikipedia, and I will welcome everyone to comment on it and see if we can refine it further. So basically, the concept is that we integrate the new web technologies, the new Web 2 technologies, with the emerging what we call fourth generation wireless into a new domain of healthcare. We call it healthcare at the age of Wikipedia and MySpace and Beepo. So now, coming back to our reality, is we see that the self-care has been in the well-known triangle where actually tertiary care are right at the bottom, and the self-care is really at the bottom. So information age healthcare, or what the technology now is trying to do, is actually to reverse the pyramid and make really most of the individualized healthcare at the top, and the professional and the tertiary care as much as possible to the bottom, where actually really it is the care for the needed surgery and really intensive care and these things. So this is where the process is going, how we inverse this 2,000-year-old triangle into this. Now, of course, some areas are really maturing, and some areas are still in the research, and this has to be yet to be seen. So, of course, now the move is more toward preventative care or personalized health care, and to shift from the hospital or the traditional care really into the personalized health care. And this is where some of the applications are really maturing now, moving from the lab environments into the personalized health care. And one of the things that I'm really now started interesting is, of course, the well-being, and or using these technologies for the worried well. And of course, demographically, all the intention is going into this way, because we are having an aging population in the developed countries. Japan now is officially, elderly is increasing more than the birth. Europe definitely is becoming an aging societies. Again, baby boomers in United States and Canada are what we call them definitely within the worried well generation. So the healthcare paradigm shift, the drivers for the change can be summarized in this. Basically, of course, there is a cost containment, and as I said, changing demographics and aging society, and proliferation of the healthcare delivery, and changing disease patterns in another element. Impact of advances in information technology, wireless and computing, and genomics in the recent decade. And of course, we are having more informed and expectant patients, especially the new generation, the 40 plus, which are very technology savvy, the well-being factor, and the wellness paradigm. Remember, I'm talking all this about the current generation. So people like my age, which is okay, I know how to use the phone and think, but I think the idea of the economics is actually for our children's age, where really they are into more of this sort of social networking and iPods and mobile phones. So this is their generation. So this is an example from the Department of Health, recent statistics in the UK. You can see that massive healthcare expenditure is gone for the over 65, as you can see here. By a few years, it will go above the 1 billion and so forth, increasing massively. And we are talking pounds here, so multiplied by 2 in dollars. So demographically, and now there is a big interest in the UK for elderly care, how the technology can help for elderly care. And of course, as I said, the population over 65, I guess the same demographic change in Canada. Again, on the other hand, we have a huge prevalence of diseases, especially chronic diseases. So recent statistic from the World Health Organization, 600 million around the world age 60 plus diabetic. This is a statistics in 2006 from UK. You can see prevalence nearly 2 million in England, and Wales about 100. So big percentage, really amazing, 3.5% UK average has diabetic. And of course, as you know, 80% of people with type 2 diabetes will die prematurely from other complications like cardiovascular diseases and so forth. And alarmingly, there is a lot of the people who are diabetic and they don't know about it. Another cost, coronary heart disease cost the UK healthcare system 1.73 billion. Massive amount of costs. Heart disease admissions account for only 7% of the overall NHS bed days, with 5% growth in occupied bed from in the last 5 years, from 1989 to 2004. And diabetic treatment accounts more than £5 billion. That's about $10 billion in care. So chronic disease is another pusher in the. Recently, the health minister, Lord Darzi, Ara Darzi, produced a report on how he restructured and modernized the healthcare, and he coined the phrase polyclinics. So basically, what does the polyclinics? It's a bigger, it's a quasi-specialized centers that they do all the necessary treatments that are not required for admissions in the hospitals. And so the drivers, of course, is improving healthcare quality, enhancing healthcare access, and facilitating meaningful and transparent partnership between patients and healthcare providers. So these are the three areas where actually how we can see that technology is moving to change the current healthcare practices. Now, this is about the healthcare and the drivers, and going back to my interest on wireless is some people ask, what is fourth generation? I mean, the people who are not involved in wireless research. I mean, I don't need to go to this nice picture from the late 80s, late 80s, you know, the block. So, and these are some statistics which are not strange really now. I mean, 2006 online mobile music generates 1.5 billion of revenues. So the proliferation of the mobile technology is amazing, and especially in the new generation. And I think there was a sort of a small revolution really happened with the iPhone and with the iPod. Massive change. I mean, walk anywhere, everyone has an iPod now. And with the iPhone coming, and the iPhone, I like the iPhone Touch actually. It's a very nice thing, but I'm thinking of buying it or not. It's a bit expensive. So what is the fourth generation? It's the evolution of the current generation of wireless technologies, or into the now we are. I mean, the people just who are not. We are now in what they call the 3.75 generation, which is the high-speed data packet access and high-speed uplink packet access, which gives roughly around 2 megabit per second in both either uplink or downlink, which is a pretty good broadband access in the wireless domain. So these are not yet I think in Canada or in America, but certainly they are both operatable and commercial in England. And we are now working on commercial systems that can give us either in the uplink or roughly around 1 meg, or in the downlink around 1 meg or a bit higher than the 1 meg in the downlink. Now the research in the wireless domain is actually to redefine and understand, this is now the current research, and they expect, of course, they say that it's around 2012, but it may be a bit further, that the fourth generation will be there. And as a matter of fact, the iPhone is one of the things that is very interesting from the healthcare perspective, because that touch thing is very interesting. So this is a diagram that gives you the evolution from the second generation, the GSM, and the current generation, the 3G and the 3.5G, and the future generation, which, as you can see, the aim, of course, is to get really access data to 100 megabit per second to 1 gigabit per second speed, massive speed. And but the interesting thing about the fourth generation, which is the interest for the healthcare, is actually it will be, and this is very important, it will be personalized, and it will be a context-aware system. So I will explain later what does it mean in terms of the personalization and the context awareness. So this is where actually the research is currently on, and definitely my team is working part of this. And if anyone is interested in knowing more about the fourth generation and thing, there is 2 major European initiatives. One is called WWRF, Wireless World Forum, and the other one called e-mobility. They do a lot of documents and things about this research. So this is, again, another diagram showing you the path where the GSM went into GPRS and then Edge and WCDMA, and now we are in the what we call the 3.5 or high-speed data downlink packet access, which gives around 384 kilobit per second in the uplink and about 1.5, 1.2 megabit per second in the downlink. Sorry, and 384 in the uplink, and the HSUPA gives the reverse mode throughput in the uplink. Again, evolution and the comparison of the data rates of the current 3G and the evolved 3G or 3.5G. So you can see that that's what the theoretical data rates are there, but it's really not 10 meg, it's much less. But still, it's a very impressive data rates into the current generation that could have. So, 4th generation, the key concept is integrating the 4th generation capabilities with all of the existing mobile technologies through advanced technologies. Application adaptability and being highly dynamic are the main features of the 4G system and services that are interest. So it's it will be a user-focused system. And it is not one system. It is not the way in which it will see the evolution like we have seen in the cellular systems. But it will be a system that brings all the major, what we call the infrastructure systems, like the cellular systems, and also the much smaller systems, like the wireless body area networks and the the Wi-Fi's and the WiMAXs into one system. That is the core, of course, is the IP, Internet Protocol. So the core will be an Internet Protocol, like so it's like a sun, and there's a satellite of all these systems that include this, the infrastructure system, like the cellular ones, which include the 3.75 and whatever is next coming, and of course the much smaller ones, less infrastructure-less, like the, as I said, the body area networks, the ad hoc networks, and okay. So now this is general overview about the generation of the wireless. Now I give you my own research, how I came from the journey. So journey started in a university town called Loughborough. And it's a small university town right smack in the middle of England. And actually it's one of the top 10 universities in the UK. It wasn't there 20 years ago when I was. It's like Waterloo. It's a very engineering-oriented university. Plus, Loughborough is also as famous as the top university in sports. So a lot of the athletics that won medals in the last Olympics from UK, which were impressive, were from Loughborough graduates. And it's a very engineering-oriented university. So this is where actually it's one of the first projects that we did with Loughborough with Professor Brian Woodward, my PhD supervisor, who retired now. It was in 96, 97 that we got a grant from the EPSRC, which is the NSERC, to do a GSM-based, really first wireless telemedicine system in UK. I think in the world, probably no one at that time, 96. And we published some of the works later, much later, 2001, about the work. So imagine it was published. We started the work in 96 and still publishing the ITP transaction after 5 years. So it was basically a GSM-based system with a, and this is a snapshot of the system. It's a GSM card with a laptop and send all the physiological parameters. It sends ECG and blood pressure with a video camera. So now it's, I think it's a museum piece. But at that time it was really, it's a breakthrough. So you can see a GUI MATLAB interface with all the ECG, the real time. So this was one of the earliest work we have done. Okay, we moved on. What we do in the Mint Center in Kingston, and which is affiliated to St. George's. St. George's is one of the biggest medical hospitals in London. It's like equivalent to Toronto General Hospital. It's it's the biggest in the UK teaching-wise, and it has a big divisions, and we work very closely with them. So the center does a lot of work, of course, focuses beyond 3G wireless technologies for healthcare. And also we do a lot of work on emerging network technologies, like we have a group of the multimedia, mobile and multimedia network. I have 2 colleagues who work really on a lot of the research on the cross-layer design and transport applications and things like that. But the focus, of course, the main focus of the center is on the healthcare. A new area that I'm going to explain, which I call biomolecular communication, started about 2 years ago that I'm working. And recently we really started looking at the security and privacy issues on healthcare, because we thought that this is a very, very important and under-researched area that haven't looked a lot at this time. So there it is. Of course, we have also a lot of clinical evaluation is done with St. George's, and the medical expertise, we get it from St. George's. And again, we work closely with them. A lot of funding, we get a lot of funding from the from the government, from the European Union, and from the industry. We'll show you some examples of these funded projects. So I give you, introduce to Mary, a typical case. Mary could be your auntie or grandmother, or it could be your mother. Well, it can't be your mother because she is my mother. And this is Carolyn, my daughter. She is, again, a chronic diabetic patient. She is under our care. And if she wasn't our care, her really situation would have been very difficult. So, what we are now, and Mom is one of our guinea pigs, actually, in the trials, or she was, in the trials that we have done with Motorola. And here she is. She's using the gun, I call it, which she measures her glucose level, and Carol helps her to laptop to send the data from the phone. So of course, one of the areas that we have done is a clinical trials on using 3G mobile technologies for diabetics. So this is the traditional, you know, they go the patients, the paper, and they transport, and they go. Can you imagine my mom, 80 years old, going all the way to the hospital every 2 weeks? And you know, scribble these, and some of them they miss. So what the trial has done is actually bring the 3G phone with the Bluetooth enabled glucose meter and the blood pressure, again Bluetooth blood pressure system, that the patient takes the measurement, and everything is transmitted seamlessly through the phone and through then a web interface engine, where actually the nurse, so there it is. Of course, there's a wait and goes through the 3G phone and network, and then it goes to the. So this is a Bluetooth enabled, secure Bluetooth enabled system that goes to the phone, and this is the structure of the system. So there is a nurse, a specialist nurse, where it can get all the data, and it can also alert to the back to the patient if the nurse sees that the patient doesn't have taken the measurements in a regular time. So this is again the structure of the system of the clinical trials on diabetes. So this is a snapshot of they call it Moto Health. These are the patient IDs. Of course, they are all anonymous. And this is a snapshot by the nurse. She can see. So if she clicks on any of the patients, then she can see the distribution of the diabetes and the glucose. Here is an example of the blood pressure measurement and the diabetes over a period of time, numerically and graphically. And of course, it also alerts if there is any hypertension indications or hyperglycemic patients, so the nurse can be able then to call back the patient about it and invite either she visit or invite her back. So it's a very typical disease management system. And now actually in Toronto, I know that in the Center Global eHealth Center, they are doing a similar trial. They will start very soon. And one of the key aspects of my visit here is to look at the comparative analysis, lesson learned from the UK, from our trial, and the Canadian perspective. So we are currently working with the center on this comparative approach. What is the pluses and minuses? One of the things that came out from our trials is there was a big problems with compliance, patient compliance. So the patients are very keen, interested to look, to take the measurements, but once if the nurse is not interested, they will not take the measurements. So there is still issues like the compliance still really needed to be refined. So these are one of the key lessons that we learned from the trials. Of course, other things is that whether really telemedical versus traditional care was able to control the glycemic levels or not. This is something that we are now analyzing. And we see whether the same technologies is going to work in the Toronto area or not. So these are some of the research projects that we do. There's another new area on the wireless people that, again, I introduced. It's called medical quality of service issues for wireless healthcare. So it's quality of service is a well-known terminology for the wireless people, but I redefine it specifically for tailor-made for mHealth applications. Oh, this is, sorry, still of the Motorola. This is a movie about, I don't know if this, let me double click on it. Yeah. Oh, it skipped.
I'm not sure if it'll work fully. Tries to play it, I'm not sure.
It's okay. I mean, to give another example is the very advanced mHealth application, and this is something that we are very interested in. There is a lot of interest in the UK community about it. This was a project funded about 3-4 years ago from the European Union, multi-million project. It's called in the area of mobile robotic ultrasonography. So basically the project called Otello, and basically what it is to build a very ultralight robot which mimics the hand movements of the expert, remote expert. So the expert can have effective probe with a force feedback where he can sense and then there is a nurse or non-specialist at the remote end, and as the expert moves, as he's doing the ultrasound scanning, the robot mimics his hand movement, and all the ultrasound video is sent back to the specialist where he can see actually and diagnose the right, if there is any problem in that particular part of the patient's autonomy. It's a very interesting advanced mHealth application, and we were responsible. There were partners, I mean, from France, Spain, clinical partners were from Spain, and we were the people responsible for the third generation communication link in Kingston. So the robot actually that you've seen is designed based on really extensive studies, and I think 2 PhD students in France to design it. And this is the structure that they came. It has a 6 or 5 degree of freedom with 3 rotation and translation. So it exactly mimics the hand movement of the scanning of the expert. And this is the snapshot, and you can see this is the fictive probe that is linked to the, and that's the probe, and this is the special probe of the system with the force feedback, so it can feel the body as the expert scans it. And this is the setup, and that's the robot. And so it was a big challenge, is really sending video streams in hundreds of kilobits per second over, at the time, 2.5G and 3G communication. So 2 PhDs have finished this research, really looking at the resilience and the optimized issue of transmission of the video streaming, medical video streaming, from one end to the remote end. So this is now one of the key areas where we are looking at the optimization of medical video streaming, and hence the idea came from the medical quality of service and how we can really send video streams from A to B. We are not sending here diagnostic quality that are acceptable by the patients. I have a clip. I hope this one works. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's working. So this is, you can see there's the ultrasound, and it can be seen here by the physician in France. This is Professor Philippe Arbille, who was the brainchild of the ultrasonography. And I heard now they are using it in the space agency. Really, they are sending the whole robot back to the European space to use it. And we are now really working on a revolutionary concept with some of the medical people, that we get rid of the mechanized version. So completely evolved, remove the robot concept. And so this is a setup of it's a lot of the COM structures. And Vodafone, it's like Rogers in UK, it's a multi-billion global operator that support us in the work. And this is the wireless connectivity of the system. And Dr. Nada Philippe, one of my PhD graduates, who is now a lecturer in the Min Center, done all the optimization issues. And last month we presented the work in the IEEE MBS on the objective and subjective quality of services from the images and the video streams that's sent by this. So anyone is interested here, you would like, I'm happy to have more chat about it. But this is an evolving area, and a very challenging area, by the way, medical video streaming in wireless environments. So one of the things we are looking actually is the integration of the whole system into, as I said, part of the 4G evolution into the WiMAX, into the hospitals. And this is some of the things that I would like really to talk to the wireless people here. And if we can set up a WiMAX system in the campus and do a lot of research in the medical domain. So because we are doing similar thing in UK. So yeah, this is, I don't want to go into details, very technical about how we did the multi-objective optimization on the 3G network on the application layer. That so we have the data and the patient expert, and there are bounds that the peak signal to noise ratio for any clinical acceptability in the should not exceed 35 dB per second. So the next generation of healthcare, and this is part of the Wikinomic healthcare, is actually integrate all these technologies to the user. I mean, one of the things that I think is very applicable on the Wikinomic health is how we integrate the well-being of not the patient, but let's say middle age that are worried about their diabetes or their weight. And how can the current wireless technology help in education, in the educational side, using really the mobile internet access? And of course, the other thing is the home care and the elderly, and this is of course subject open to a lot of research at the time being. So a lot of research now is on body area networks and medical wireless sensor networks and wearables in Europe. A lot of funding has been given to Philips, Siemens about wearables that people wear, and it's interesting to look at that area. And there's a lot of challenges on wearables. For example, there's a wearable bra, and there's wearable, and you know. So I don't know how this works if someone wants to take a bath. So it's yeah. Another snapshot of our work is using packetization and a lot of for electrocardiogram signals, and how we send them into the wireless area and how we can compress them so that it can keep the clinical quality of the ECG data. And we published some work again recently on this. So this is again this whole process about wearables and making everything into via modes and cardiovascular, especially CVD diseases and cardiovascular. I think this is something that maybe it's a near market technology that could be very interesting. So another thing about the Wikinomic healthcare is that my colleague who was manager in Motorola, Jose Lacal, called me the other day and he said, Robert, I set up, I mean, after the Motorola's recent corporate problems, he left Motorola and set up Health Library in it. So he set up a whole library about a very interesting one where you can put your name and thing, and then you want, for example, type of disease or condition you want to look at, and then you click on these and you get all the research, all the funding in US now, he restricted to US, in that particular area. So if you are, like, for example, diabetic and you want to see in your area what are the research, for example, he put Los Angeles, and there was, I didn't know that there is an 18 currently clinical trials on diabetes type 2 in the Los Angeles area. And for example, what they are asking and what they are trying to do and all this in one click. And also, he can say, okay, what are the drugs they are using? For example, what are the drugs that you use for diabetic, and what they are and what purposes. So it's a very nice educational toolbox that Jose have developed, and he is happy. So I said, I'm giving a presentation at Waterloo, so if you want to send something about this, it could be interesting, called Health Librarian. So this is like the first generation of health Wikinomics, you know. How we can maybe move forward from this, because this is the current generation of the web. But my vision is actually take it further from this. Yeah. So this is this is again a new area that again I coined about 2 years ago. I call biomolecular communications for system biology. This is a new area because my work in the last 15-20 years was really looking at how the wireless works for the patient and the person outside. But then I realized, really, if we are going to move toward the fourth generation and this personalization, we have to look much closer into the inside the body, what's happening, and what is the prevention, how we can prevent. So all this talk about prevention, I thought it's interlocked with understanding more of the genomic level and system biology. So what I thought about really peeling the onion, as I said, and really how I can use the communication theory into the genomics. So this is, in a snapshot, what biomolecular communication means. So this is the central dogma of molecular biology, if anyone knows. We have the DNA, which is the basic genetic code. By process of transcription, ends up to a messenger RNA, which is like the messenger, the code, and by a process of translation, the messenger RNA, which is the messenger of the genes, transforms to the protein code, which forms, of course, the basis of the cell. And so there is this whole issue about really bridging the gap between the life sciences and the healthcare, and how we can use, understand more. So understanding what I call cellular healthcare. And cell here is not cellular. Well, actually it came because the cell concept, the whole cellular thing, came, funnily enough, from the cellular. But this, I'm flipping it back to really back to the cellular, where the cell is the cell, the human cell, not the wireless cell. So I call it cellular healthcare. And definitely it has a lot of potential in the pharmaceutical area, because now the process of the discovery of the drugs have a missing link, is that they do trials maybe on thousands of patients, and they go and recircle, and then they found the drug. However, until now, they don't know if there is something how these drugs works in patients in the real world. So this is where actually wireless technologies comes in plugging into this and understanding how they work. Because some of the cancer, I mean, take any disease like diabetic or cancer or whatever, it might work for a larger population, but there is a specific population that it doesn't work for them, and they don't understand that. So if we can link, because one of the dogmas is it environment, is it genetically where we are born, they don't know. But if we can plug the two things together, it will be really very interesting and understand. So one of the research we are doing actually is trying to understand what we call the polymorphism, which is flipping of the genes. So we know that the genes flip. I mean, that's the whole thing. And every time it flips, I mean, it's normal. But sometimes it flips in the wrong way, and this is what we call single nuclear polymorphism. So it flips, and we call it SNPs. And when it flips in the wrong time, in the wrong place, then you can have, you are unfortunate to have some disease. So there is a lot of, I'm not going to go into details because of the time, so I'm watching the hour, so there's a lot of the issues about. So basically this is the we are trying to emulate the process of the translation and transcription into a communication model. So we say the source is in the normal digital communication digital data. In the biocom model, set of proteins, the encoded data JPEG or MPEG, there is DNA. the encoder, digital encoder, and this is the big enigma, is that it's virtual. It's how God created us. We don't know what's a digital encoder. But we know that the digital decoder is the translation process. So this is the big enigma, is that God created us with an encoder that we don't know what it is. So that's the big problem, where the challenge is that how we can build a and this, I don't want to go into details about this. This is about clustering microarray that we are also doing, and one of the PhDs is finishing. So I want to finish just with a talk about Richard Granger, who was from the multi-billion department. He says NHS is brand providing services via different organizations that sometimes work together. So it's a very nice about how difficult and complex it is to change the NHS. And finally, the future. So you can see MIT Technology Review publishes every year the emerging technologies. And in 2007, 2006, amazingly, everything they mentioned about of the technology, at least 5 or 6 of them are related to healthcare. So the last one last year, I mean, it's personalized medicine monitors as the emerging area. I mean, all these areas, nano healing, peer-to-peer review, everything that I talked about is emerging. So again, I would like to finish with Hitchcockian. The length of the film should be directly related to endure the human bladder. Thank you very much.
Well, now you have a chance for questions. So questions and comments, anybody? Good. Don?
Yes.
One of the big problems in the whole area of connecting things wirelessly has nothing to do with the fact that you can do it or not. It can be done. It's quite easy to do. The big problem is the standards, software engineering, et cetera, because you can build one, but you can't deploy it because every phone is, not every phone, every brand of phone is different. They all reveal different things, et cetera.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something, because I couldn't talk about everything here in 50 minutes. Interoperability, it's a big issue, and in a matter of fact, there is now a big conglomerate of industry called Continua, which is led by Intel, which they are actually bringing all these big big industry, Healt, Packard, motor, you know, name it, big into understanding interoperability of medical devices, specifically looking at that. So creating something equivalent to the USB memory stick that can work everywhere on their phones, you know. So this is something that, yes, the industry is leading, and they are very much into this. And this is a very important point, yes. And it is one of the challenges that are still. But because it's linked closely with the industry, it's a big problematic issue. But they are on the way on trying to solve that, to build these standards, especially for personalized healthcare. A matter of fact, Jose started something on the IEEE standard of personalized healthcare. I don't know what was it. So that's something he was looking at. Yeah.
So who are people who are working directly on that problem of unified?
It's a Continua. It's an alliance called Continua.
Continua.
Continua. Yeah, it's Continua
Okay.
Alliance. It's well known. I mean, just yeah.
Okay.
It's specifically working on the interoperability of medical devices, and it's thousands of companies, small, big, run by the big companies, corporates, but also it has all these memberships. So any university or can get membership and get into their discussion and standards. So hopefully, I think they publish some standards. I didn't follow that because it's not really my core area of research. So, but I know that. No, they're implementing because it's a very complex thing, because then they have to go, for example, to the politicians, maybe, for example, work closely with the European Union to say, okay, we have to put a law that is really universal between, let's say, North America and Europe, and then everyone will follow that. So it's a discussion that is going. Yeah.
I have one question about your ultrasound robotic solution. You had a satellite link in there, and that would engender fairly significant delays. How are you dealing with the issue of communication delays in that?
Yes, I mean, one of the things, it's a good question actually, because in the Otello system, the French wanted to try it in Morocco, in the desert. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's desert, so the only and I think system like this is very useful actually, even in remote areas in Canada here, where actually, you know, very northern areas where there is no connectivity and thing, and the only thing is satellite. And of course the satellite didn't work perfectly because of the end-to-end delay, because there was one of the things interestingly is that the delay, in order for the doctor to see it really without the you know, the what I call the film backlash effect, it has to be roughly 300 to 355 end-to-end, from receiver to transmitter, 350 millisecond. So less than 1/3 of the second. And then everything will be okay. So by the time he moves the robot, he can see back the images as normal. And the satellite was not as perfect as that, while actually the 3G technology was just about to cover that delay from our trials in the lab. So this was the interesting thing, that the cellular thing was able to cope with the end-to-end delay more better than the satellite.
What was the end-to-end delay for the cellular, approximately, order of magnitude?
Just about 300. Just
about 300?
Yeah,
okay.
300. And actually the acceptable delay was 350 milliseconds. So it was within the bounds. The satellite was a bit higher, 370, 380. It works, but the doctors can see that, you know, that delay in there. So of course, one of the things that we try to do, and this was one of the research of NEDA, is to optimize it so that we can minimize the delay. And you have to look at the application layer, so to look at the two things, what we call the cross-layer design. So you look at the compression of the images, real-time compression, versus the application layer. So, and this is a whole research area, what we call the cross-layer design. And there is a team in the Mint Center, they are working specifically on that.
I gather the feedback then for this is much longer than for telesurgery, which I heard quoted about 90 milliseconds. In other words, if you're attempting to do the surgical intervention, if you have more than, I think it was 90 milliseconds, then you get into the problem of overcorrecting. And so I guess this is a simpler, more gross movement in terms of the ultrasound than that.
Yeah, because in the surgery, you are only seeing the robotic information.
Yes, yeah.
While here, you are not only sending the robotic information, but you are sending a very bandwidth demanding application, which is the video stream, actually.
No, actually, you're seeing back where you're seeing back your instrument. The total loop needs to be 90 milliseconds. I think that's the proper quote. Somebody, Safavi, with Ali were here, he told me correctly, but it's a finer control problem, I guess, is the difference there. One other thing I wanted, or two other things I want to talk about. If anybody has any questions, please put your hands up. I did a recent review of a research grant, and it related to something that you brought up, which I think is crucially important, and you might want to comment a little further on it. It pointed out that a great deal of the work that's done in clinical trials is very episodic. It's done over a year or 2 years or a very finite amount of time. And very little of that research gets reviewed or into the system. So you try this out, it does or doesn't work, but 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, the patient is still on that medication, and no one knows what happens. So this research was attempting to integrate the clinical trial data and patients back into the care system and get that information. So it seems to me that, particularly the mobile technologies, that would make it even more possible to do that. They point out that the gap is that we really don't know what happens after the experimental period. And so we've got people running around and with very little knowledge of that. Now, there are exceptions where you're following large populations like the Framingham study or something like that. Those are huge exceptions to the rule. So I don't know, if you considered connecting into the clinical trials and then using your mobile health as the follow-on agent for that?
Yeah, I mean, there are two things about this. I mean, definitely, in my belief, as I presented, that the mobile technology will be that link, that the bridge that can link, because then you have everyone his phone, and then you can understand on the long term, let's say 3-4 years, how he is adhering beyond the clinical trials. But what we came from the lessons learned from the motor health trial that we have done is that the adherence is a big problem. So even if the patients would like the trials, let's say in the 6 months, that they would like to take the measurements, something. I'm taking that example of the diabetes. But then if there is really not follow-up, they will not just take the measurements. They just forget and lose it. So that's why one of the key issues that we came is that we have patients that they take measurements in the first 2 months, and then when the nurse was absent or something, no one took the results for the next 2 months until the nurse came and called and said, oh, by the way, you haven't taken the result. So there's a compliance and adherence issue even with the mobile technology. And this is something that is open to research. How we make such systems more resilient, more robust from the adherence side. And adherence, I think it's a key problem. And this is where actually, I think now we are going to publish something jointly with the global people about the adherence. Because I think they had the same problem. They did a small trial on the, I don't know, is it? Again, it's a very small trial on diabetes. And they came to the same problem, that adherence was a big problem. So yes, it is a solution, but there are also these issues of adherence that have to done that. I agree that, and one of the things that this Wikinomic Health can do this, because then if someone is really diabetic and the future systems can be more intelligent, and then it will tell them, oh, by the way, can you take your measurement, or remember, you will become cardiovascular disease if you are already a diabetic, so something like that. I mean, how we can make the system more intelligent.
Yeah, there'd be a reminder capability that would bring into it. Other questions or comments from our diabetes crowd particularly? Anything else? Go ahead, Ted.
Location.
Yeah.
The follow-up, you're right, clinical trials, by and large, tend to be relatively short. And, I mean, this is one of the problems that happened with the Vitora, with the mix of the statin and the other, I forget what the class of the second drug was. It dropped blood lipids, but there has still not been any evidence that there is any benefit in terms of long-term health effects in terms of cardiovascular disease. And by and large, clinical trials are done for 6 months. Some of the really important ones will be maybe 2 years, where they need to have a big enough group with a long enough time to be able to determine if they're really achieving the endpoints that they desire in terms of the clinical trial. But often not long enough to establish if there are long-term toxicities and adverse events that are happening. And we know all too well the Celebrex issue that happened in the last couple of years, that when they don't follow up, they sometimes get into real trouble, because there are bad things that happen beyond that first 6 months or 12 months of the study. And certainly having some way of monitoring using the remote technology would be a very good thing in terms of those post-marketing clinical trials, which are awfully important in terms of maintaining the appropriate safety as far as the pharmaceuticals. The other comment that I would make is that I know I have been involved with research group that was looking at the genetics of disease at Memorial. This was in terms of colon cancer and some of the variants of colon cancer. And what is a little bit disappointing for those who are really high on being able to personalize healthcare in terms of genetic defects that may be there for chronic disease, is that as more and more information comes out, it turns out that more and more of the important chronic diseases are so multifactorial, that is, that there are many sites that are there in terms of mutation, that it's there are some people that are despairing that they're ever going to have more than a handful of diseases that are going to be able to be really truly tailored to the treatment, because the genetic determinants are so diffuse that it's difficult to target them in terms of the pharmaceutical approaches to the disease, and certainly very difficult to visualize molecular engineering, where they might be able to repair a defect that would be there, because it's not one defect. It ends up being, I think, in some of the type 2 diabetes now, they've got something like 20 cofactors that are there in terms of the genetic linkages that are related to the occurrence of the type 2 diabetes. So, you know, it's a nice concept, and we may be able to figure it out eventually at some level, but it ain't going to be easy.
Yes.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Anybody? Don't want to miss anybody. I'll just make a final comment is that I've always felt compelled to mention this, that we often think about the health system and the aging of the population as a big factor in the cause of the increased cost of health care and so on. And there's original research done out of here by John Hurdes, as well as published in the Health Research, I can't remember the agency, I forget it right now. They have a series of papers that are essentially Mythbuster papers. Which do you remember the name, the proper name for it, Don?
It's called Mythbusters.
It's Mythbusters, yeah. So, and there's a really good paper on that really knocks that hypothesis. I still wonder about it, but the evidence is that not only isn't it costing more, but the actual level of expenditure in Canada on healthcare has gone down relative to the gross domestic product. So I think it's important as we present this nationally and internationally that we not let people shoot sort of anti-aircraft rockets at what we're saying. And I just wanted to mention that to bring it back to here. Thank you very much for being here today. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you very much.